Hey everyone, welcome into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. I'm Bobby Sylvester, as always, with Mike Tagliere, who is showing you all his chest hair today. Tags, do you want to explain why you look like this?
It's a bet. I am. I would not dress like this, by the way, if I was not forced to, and I lost a bet. But Bobby, on the other hand, Bobby, wow. I don't. I, I don't know. It's not like a Gardner Minshew look. You don't have my look going, but you have a look of someone. It's almost like an Ace Ventura trying to dress like Gardner Minshew. That's all I can go off right now. I don't know how else to say it.
What do you mean, man? This is like my normal look.
I would believe you if I didn't see you more often. But
Yeah, so
your personality matches this. Yes.
so here's what it comes down to, guys. Okay, so Tags and I did a bet last week. We both had to use Gardner Minshew, and the reason that I beat Tags was because I had to use Jeff Swaim. He had to use the Miami Dolphins defense, and if it wasn't for that part of the bet, he actually would have beat me. And plus, I had a lot of people just saying like, dude, you should get rewarded for winning this contest and get to dress like Gardner Minshew. So I figured I might as well entertain you all while we're at it. So we're going to be doing the waiver wire live stream dressed like this. It's a shame actually that Tags is not sitting a little bit higher in his chair so you can see his chest hair, but we'll have to make do with what we have. Tags, there's not really too much in the way of news to talk about. We'll keep you updated on our Twitters at Bobby Fantasy Pro and at Mike Tagliere NFL as all of this stuff comes in throughout the week. Tags and I are also going to be posting our rankings as well. And I've got a start sit show that comes out every Thursday at the same time. So hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss out on that one. Tags does a live stream on Sunday mornings to get you all ready and answer your questions as well. Tags, let's just get right into it, man, where we've got the first guy on our waiver wire, Mohamed Sanu. And it's not that he's our favorite pickup, but he is someone worth mentioning this week. And we talked about it on the podcast. That he's just this guy that you can use as a wide receiver 5. And anytime you've got a bye week or an injury, he fills in. But this week, he's got a nice matchup against Houston. So I think that he's a solid pickup. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, no, I do like Mohamed Sanu. He's somebody that I was drafting late in drafts just because he's like a guy that you can kind of throw in your lineup if you have like a dire situation. Like if you were drafting AJ Green, you could have stuck Mohamed Sanu in your lineup a couple times. And coming off a 12 target performance, I mean, that's his most going back to I think it was week 6 of 2014. He had not seen that many targets since week 6. So it was difficult to project that, but knowing that he did is obviously a good thing. Knowing that Devonta Freeman in the run game for Atlanta is struggling, that Alex Mack might be out for the Falcons this week. There's a lot of reasons to kind of like Sanu again. They're going up against this Texans defense that, I mean, Bradley Roby has been moved to nickel cornerback just because they cut Aaron Colvin, and he's not really equipped to do that. So while Julio Jones has a fantastic matchup with Lonnie Johnson, a rookie, Mohamed Sanu's matchup's really good too. So if you're looking for a bye week fill-in or someone to fill in for an injury, I think Mohamed Sanu could be he can give you another useful week.
Tex, Calvin Ridley hasn't done much yet. Is he the number 3 behind Sanu? I mean, Sanu right now, he had 12 targets last week, 6 the week before, 7 against the Eagles, 6 against the Vikings. It seems like they're using him as that wide receiver 2 once again this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the number 2. He's not. Ridley's been dealing with some sort of hip injury that has led him to missing some practice time. That may have affected in terms of like what his target share has been. I mean, Calvin Ridley, this is like over the last 2 weeks, I think it's 32 yards he has or 36 in the 2 weeks combined. There's only one other time in his short career where he's had that low a total through 2 weeks. And after that, this was something I was digging into earlier. After that, he the next 3 games, he totaled 13 receptions for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's going to bounce back. It's just a matter of when he bounces back. So I keep plugging Calvin Ridley in as like a wide receiver 3 and waiting for him to come back.
Speaking of boring wide receiver 5s who are getting a lot of targets, Tags, the next guy on our list, Cole Beasley, has 23 targets in the last 2 weeks against Cincinnati and New England. Is it going to happen this week again against Tennessee? And even if it doesn't, do you want him for the rest of the season?
I mean, Cole Beasley reminds me a lot of like Adam Humphries last year, where he's someone that we didn't expect him to be like a very big, a fantasy target, a fantasy reliable target. And, after watching Adam Humphries do it for a few weeks, people started to be like, was it the matchups? Was it all the pass attempts? Was it this? Was it that? I mean, Cole Beasley's a top 36 wide receiver, and the Bills have scored more than 20 points just once on the season. So obviously it's not requiring a whole lot of scoring. It's not requiring a whole lot of pass attempts. This is a very concentrated offense when they drop back to pass. It's John Brown, it's Cole Beasley. So while he doesn't have the one play potential that John Brown does, his targets also don't rely on accuracy from Josh Allen. So I'm starting to come around on Cole Beasley, and I'm like, if I think I'll consider him like a wide receiver 4 most weeks. But if you're looking for someone with a safe floor, that's where I'd go.
So tags these two, Sanu and Beasley. I think you would agree they're really nowhere close to the top 2 wide receivers this week. But would you spend a fab buck or two on them, or would you just wait and see what happens and pick them up for free after the fab deadline?
I'd probably just wait and pick him up for free. No need to spend
Me
any
too.
money.
Yep, I would agree with that because what are the chances that both Sanu and Beasley are going to be picked up in your league? You'll be able to get one of them for free, and they're basically the same. I love Beasley's after the bye schedule: Miami, Philadelphia, Washington. So I like him long term. This week he's not a great play. I'd rather go with Sanu, and if T.Y. Hilton's out, I'd rather go with Paris Campbell, assuming he's healthy.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with Paris Campbell yet. I'm still waiting to see some injury news on him because he was kind of in and out of the game. And if he's not right as a rookie, a guy that had limited time in the offense to begin with, just because of all the preseason workouts he missed out on, that's definitely worrisome. So Paris Campbell was someone I did like this week. It's just like before this whole injury business, but it's definitely worth paying attention to his practice participation.
Right. All right. Tight end. And a lot of people were expecting Chris Herndon to be the number 1 tight end this week. A lot of people are scooping him up. He doesn't play yet because he was on his bye. But if you want somebody for this week, it's definitely Tyler Eifert, right, Tegs?
Yeah, it's Eifert for sure. I mean, you like basically like I was willing to roster 2 tight ends in leagues that I stream tight ends. I was willing to grab Tyler Eifert at the end of last week because I knew that everybody would run to the waiver wire and grab him playing Arizona this week. I mean, it just keeps going, guys. It keeps going. I haven't looked in terms of what Will Dissly's performance was on the grand scheme of things, but I think they've now allowed 4 of the top 10 tight end performances on the season, and that's kind of ridiculous considering we've played 4 weeks. So yeah, I'm going to play Tyler Eifert. Some people thought CJ Uzama was playing, and they are playing close to equal amount of snaps, but Tyler Eifert's the one actually running routes because they don't want him in blocking. So I'm going to play Tyler Eifert this week confidently.
Yeah, I will as well. He's going to be in my top 10 tight ends. I mean, Uzama's splitting snaps with him and routes run, but I mean, Eifert's the number 1 in this offense. The Cardinals are going to give it up. So, what do you think about Chris Herndon? Because he's not on our list. We weren't planning on talking about him today, but I've been getting so many questions about him with people thinking not only is he fantasy relevant, but he's a top 10 rest of the season tight end. I don't see it that way.
I don't see it that way either. I mean, guys, I understand Chris Herndon had some games last year. He was inconsistent. He was essentially a streamer that you could rely on. So, I mean, he was a rookie tight end, so that there's a lot of things to take away from that. But again, he's playing with Sam Darnold, who's been inconsistent to this point. He's now competing with targets over the middle of the field with Jamison Crowder, a guy that was targeted 17 friggin' times in week 1 with Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Darnold's always gravitated towards those slot receivers. And knowing last year it was Jermaine Kearse in there most of the time, it's no wonder that we saw Chris Herndon targeted more often than maybe he should have been. So he's a streamer at best to me. Like I would rather have someone like Will Dissly on my fantasy team. I'd rather play the stream and grab someone like Tyler Eifert. You know what I mean? Like I'll just live that life rather than dealing with the Jets offense.
Let's move on down to our 2 favorite plays this week. We'll start at Ronald Jones, the top running back on the slate. How much would you spend on him?
If you're in need of a running back, I mean, go out there and spend 15 to 20%. I'm willing to do that just because it's like, it's been really difficult. And I think that Bruce Arians coming out and saying, Peyton Barber's still going to be the starter. We're going to play the hot hand. Ronald Jones has looked good when he's given the ball. And Peyton Barber, we know what Peyton Barber is. We've seen a big enough sample size to know that he is not the long-term answer for them at running back. I feel like they did not draft a running back. They didn't grab a running back in free agency because they really felt like they wanted to see what they had in Ronald Jones. And from what I saw, that's a game that I went back and already watched this past week. Ronald Jones looked phenomenal against the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams are a good defense. I mean, they were put in a lot of bad spots in that game, but Ronald Jones looked fantastic. And his final stat line does not match what he actually did in the field because there were 2 long runs that he looked fantastic on that were called back due to penalty that had nothing to do with him. So as long as this offense and Jameis Winston keeps, getting the ball down the field, it's going to open up a bunch of holes, and Ronald Jones he's the one who can make the most of them. So I do believe he's going to be the starter for this offense before long.
Tegs, I'm really disappointed that I didn't bring my aviators, man. I couldn't find them before the show. I don't know how you're even seeing the screen with your sunglasses on.
I mean, they're prescription sunglasses that I have on right now, and I have a pair of aviators somewhere. I just never wear them because it's just not my thing. But this was as close as I could find for the show today.
All right, man. I agree about Ronald Jones. I mean, he looked terrific. Chris Carson, by the way, looked like the best running back in the NFL last week. He forced 20 missed tackles. That is unbelievable for a single game. But right behind him was Ronald Jones. And Ronald Jones, like you mentioned, had 70 yards called back on 2 separate plays. That's a big deal. We'd be talking about him as someone you'd spend 50, 60 fab bucks on if he would have had that added to his total of 80 yards. He had 19 carries again. They're not using him in the passing game quite as much as I would like to see, but I think it's clear he's the best running back in a good offense. And because of that, he's someone you would like to scoop up. I don't love the schedule moving forward, but you still got to pounce when you have the opportunity. Now, wide receiver, we've got ourselves a wide receiver 3 here on the waiver wire. He's coming back this week. Now, granted, they're going up against Minnesota, so it's not a good matchup. But Golden Tate, how much fab should we spend on him? And is he your number 1 wide receiver?
He was someone that we were grabbing last week. We did talk about him last week and saying that he should have been picked up as someone that was available on most waiver wires. I have concerns about him, though. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's a starter for the rest of the season, that you need to lock him into lineups, because I don't know how the Giants are going to use him. So Sterling Shepard, when they signed Golden Tate, it was like alarms went off in my mind, because Sterling Shepard has not been a very good football player when asked to play on the perimeter. In fact, over the course of his career, he has still yet to score a touchdown while playing on the perimeter. Over the first 4 weeks, they had him playing in the slot 80% of the time. That's his role. That's been his role in his entire career. So it's like, are we going to move this guy? It makes sense that they're going to move Sterling Shepard because he's a younger player. He should be able to get separation on the perimeter. But if for whatever reason they keep him there and then they put Golden Tate on the perimeter, kind of like he did earlier in his career with the Seattle Seahawks, I don't know, man, because I did a study on this offseason, and of 66 wide receivers who had seen at least 40 targets in each of the last 2 years, on the perimeter, Sterling Shepard ranked 49th of 66 wide receivers in terms of like what they have done on the perimeter, where Golden Tate ranked 55th of 66 receivers. So it's definitely worrisome for one of these guys. I don't know who it is, because the Giants don't run 4 wide receiver sets. This isn't Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Then I wouldn't have any concerns. So Golden Tate, if I would not be spending more than maybe 10 fab bucks on him. I mean, most people are going to spend more if he's still out there because he's available to play, but they play the Vikings this week. You wouldn't even feel great about playing him this week.
I understand if he's not the slot receiver, but what's his upside? If he's the slot receiver for Daniel Jones with Saquon Barkley out, Golden Tate's a top 25 wideout, right? I mean, last year, before he got traded, for the 5th straight season, was on pace for over 90 receptions, 101 to be exact, 1,192 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. All of that is better than what Keenan Allen did last year in a full season. I'm not saying he's Keenan Allen. I'm saying Golden Tate is still really good.
That was with Matthew Stafford in an offense that
Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones.
He'd been in that offense for 4+ years. You saw him go to Philly. People wanted to say automatically it just translates. Going to a new team is a hard thing to do. And knowing that he's been away from the team for 4 weeks, knowing that he has no time with Daniel Jones because Eli Manning was getting all the starter reps. He's had no time to build any chemistry here. And if he goes to the perimeter, there's just a whole lot of warning signs. I think there is appeal with Golden Tate. That's why I said to pick him up last week. If he does play that slot role. And if he does play that slot role, I'm going to consider him a top 36 wide receiver the rest of the season, but there's no guarantee that you're getting a guy that you can actually play. So as of right now, that's why I'm unwilling to go maybe above $10 to grab him.
All right, Tags. We've got 5 more guys to talk about here. I'm sure we'll touch on other players as well, but then we're going to be doing Q&A. Guys, if you're enjoying the show so far, if you like Tag's mustache and the sunglasses and our Gardner Minshew outfits, we've got, I think somebody called this the Gardy Party. I like that a lot. If you're enjoying the Gardy Party, hit the like button. It tells our bosses that you're enjoying the content that we're putting out and that they can make this a priority and make it important. We really love doing these shows as well. And by the way, I've got my live stream coming up on Thursday, same time as this one. I'm going to be talking start, sit, answering your questions. Tags does a live stream on Sunday. Tags, what time is that?
I do that at 12 o'clock Eastern time. So basically, or 11 o'clock Eastern time. Sometimes all these time zones, it's like trying to figure everything out because I'm in Central. So it's like trying to say Eastern time zone. But yeah, it's 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern time. I do a full hour where I talk about all the injuries that have taken place as the week goes on. And then also literally do sit start questions, like answer questions that you guys have in the chat for an hour straight. So hopefully you guys can join us on Sunday.
So if you guys want future notifications for those, hit the subscribe button. It's going to let you know what we're doing. We've also got other videos coming out during the week. I do my sleeper starts, top waiver wire pickups, stuff along those lines at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros. All right, moving on to the next group. And this is not as exciting. Donte Pettis, though, does have some upside. There's a reason before, he suffered his preseason injury and we found out about all the Kyle Shanahan shenanigans. He was being drafted 9th, 10th round. I think that he can be a volume hog in this offense. they just need to use him that way. Is it going to happen? Is it worth the risk?
I mean, if he's on your waiver wire, that means that he's been available. That means nobody picked him up last week because of his bye, all that stuff. I'm guessing you don't have to spend more than a couple bucks. I am willing to spend like $3 on him if you have to. I mean, just throw a bit out there for $3 and keep him on your bench. You're not going to play him right away, but understand that the 49ers game scripts have gone much better than they're going to go. I mean, they're not an undefeated team. Let's be real about it. They're 3-0 right now. They've run the ball an awful lot. That defense, that secondary in particular, is going to allow some points. So it's like in those games when those things start happening, Donte Pettis needs to be a part of the offense. And I know that Deebo Samuel's been out there more than him. I know that Marquise Goodwin's been out there, but Donte Pettis is actually the guy that's shown the most upside of that wide receiver core with Nick Mullins as his quarterback last year. So he's worth a bench spot right now. You don't start him, but you do it speculatively in anticipation that he is eventually going to break out. And you got yourselves, a wide receiver 3 maybe for $3.
So I think everyone understands if you're 0-4, go pick up, Mohamed Sanu, Cole Beasley, someone who's going to help you now. If you're 4-0, 3-1, go pick up who were we just talking about? Donte Pettis. Go pick up Donte Pettis. But if you're 2-2 tags, who would you rather have? Pettis or Cole Beasley?
I'll go Cole Beasley. At least I know he's playing full time. And I think best case scenario is that we're getting, 7 to 8 targets for Donte Pettis. And that's what he's been getting. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the most accurate quarterback either. He hasn't been great this year.
Yep, I would agree with that. Okay, let's keep moving along here. The next guy on our list, Geronimo Allison. At first, he was kind of an afterthought, but now that it sounds like Davante Adams is going to be out this week and maybe even longer, I think Davante Adams is the clear number 3 player in this waiver wire group.
He was never an afterthought. He always should have been rostered. Like the Geronimo Allison is a guy that it's like the number 3 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers that has experience in both the slot and the perimeter. He's a guy that can play anywhere on the field for them. That's very valuable. And especially when you have someone like Davante Adams go down, Geronimo Allison is not going to see shadow coverage like Davante Adams did. So like, that's basically something to wipe off the table. Like Marquez Valdez-Scantling does stretch the field. So you're going to see a lot of those underneath looks go to guys like Geronimo Allison. Allison should have been owned before this. This obviously only makes him worth a lot more in my eyes. So, I mean, he might be the number 1 pickup this week. Honestly, if he's available,
you would take him over Ronald Jones, maybe.
If you needed a wide receiver, for sure. Just because he's going to be startable this week. And if Davante Adams, wide receivers with foot injuries, it's a problem. Like it can affect him all season, and he might not be, available as a guy that's getting those, 10 to 12 targets per game that he was getting last year. So Geronimo Allison, again, he's a guy that has experience with Aaron Rodgers. He has chemistry with Rodgers. He's looked good when targeted. It's just getting him on the field. And by the way, he played the most snaps he has all year in week 4. Scored a touchdown that week too. So it's like these things are going to happen when Davante Adams is out of the lineup.
Yep, I would agree with that. Geronimo Allison is a fantastic pickup at this point. I do like Golden Tate a little bit more just because week to week, I think we'll be able to use him. If Adams misses 3 or 4 weeks, that's going to be big time for Geronimo Allison. I'll have him in my top 30 every single week. All this in the mentions. Gardner Minshew has more fantasy points than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think he does right now. Yeah, I think that's correct.
Tags, do I look more like Gardner Minshew or more like Nick Mullins? Very important question.
You look like you're from Miami Vice. That's where you're from. Like it's the jacket and the shirt, the combination. It's straight up Miami Vice. That's where I'm going.
Never seen.
Chat's got to let us know what they think.
All right. Next up is Kirk Cousins. He's a good streamer this week. He's been all right. Like he's had 2 really tough matchups. What'd you expect against the Chicago Bears? He wasn't so bad. And then in the second week, he was, what was it? You said he was under pressure 60% of the time. Yeah. Beyond that, he's been really efficient. Kirk Cousins has been a good fantasy asset for years and years. He's got 2 great weapons, and he goes up against the Giants this week. I think you can use him this week. I think you can use him next week against the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, I'm not a big Kirk Cousins guy. He folds under pressure, but the thing is you have to look at the matchups and play them as such, right? We knew that the Packers were going to bring pressure. They pressured him 67% of the time. That is more than anyone else in the NFL this week or this year in any week. So he was under constant duress. You go back to week 1 against the Falcons. He threw the ball 10 times. I mean, he threw 98 yards and a touchdown. I don't know if you could do much better than that. It's like the Bears. Really? You expected him to do well against the Bears? Come on. Going against the Giants, it is on the road, which is obviously a little concerning, but knowing the Giants have really, really struggled this year, I've called them the Dolphins light. And I know some people are asking for an apology after what happened last week. It's not going to happen, guys. Case Keenum and Dwayne Haskins look like crap. I know the Giants played a better game on defense, I'll say that, but they're not equipped to handle Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. They're going to score some points there. I think this is one of those games where I am shocked that the line has gone down to Minnesota -4.5. Like, I'm banging the table for Minnesota on that one. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, because if you would have said, that but before last week, where Cousins had a bad game against
Daniel
Chicago,
Jones hype, man,
and that the Giants beat the Redskins, like maybe the third worst team in football, how does that influence our decision making? It shouldn't. It's 1 week, guys. Kirk Cousins, I'm considering a low end quarterback one this week. I'm going to rank him in the top 12. So you can come and hate me if I'm wrong, but I believe he comes with a high floor. I'm expecting at least 225 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Top 10 is a little bit too high for me. Did you say top 10 or top
12?
Either way, it's a little bit too high for me, just because there's a chance he throws 12 passes. Like, that's what the Minnesota Vikings have been doing this season. So I hope it's not the case, but I would prefer Andy Dalton if I'm streaming this week.
Dalton's a good streamer too. I mean, against Arizona, you really can't fault it. And Kyler Murray and that band of Kingsbury, I don't even know what to call them. They're not very good, but they're going to run a lot of plays. And as people finally saw, like, not everybody can watch the Bengals games like I do. Like, obviously I watch all these games every week, and people finally got to see how bad the Bengals are and how they cannot tackle. They can't. So knowing that they're going to score points against the Bengals, which means Andy Dalton's going to be put in a situation where he's going to have to throw. The Arizona secondary still is very, very bad at football. They might be just as bad as the Bengals on defense. So if they don't get pressure to Andy Dalton, he's going to throw for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. So I like Dalton. I don't know if I say he's a safer option than Kirk Cousins, just because he's coming off a game where he looked horrendous, and it's not like Pittsburgh is the best defense in the league or anything.
I mean, that's true, but Arizona's a much better matchup, I would imagine. I don't know. I was going to say they're much better than the Giants, because the Giants did look good last week, but both these teams are just so bad. They're both good streamers. What I love about Andy Dalton is he's still throwing 40 passes per game. That's going to do fine. That's going to be fine against the Arizona Cardinals. I'm looking at his games, by the way. 418, and then 311, and then 249, and then 171. So I think, based on this pattern, next week he's going to be under 100 passing yards, Tags.
Oh, that would be terrible for those who want to stream him. But I will say Arizona's done better against the run than I think most people expected them to. They've struggled. I mean, Chris Carson broke a ton of tackles this past week, so that obviously allowed him to get to 100 yards. The week before that, Christian McCaffrey broke one long run, and everything else outside of that was like sub 4 yards per carry. So, I mean, this is where you attack them through the air. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Andy Dalton is a good play next week, but I would still rather grab Kirk Cousins.
Tags, I saw a lot of people ask about Jalen Samuels, and when we made up this list, it was before we saw that James Conner was going to get banged up a little bit. I think he's probably going to play, but Jalen Samuels had, what was it, 8 carries, 10 receptions, 3 completed passes. Is there a chance that he's moving in on James Conner, or is it just the injury in the game script?
I'm going to say it's just the game. I don't want to overestimate. It's kind of like grabbing Raheem Mostert and wanting to start him, or Jeffrey Wilson starting him because he did well against the Bengals. Like, I need to see it more than 1 week. And it's really odd, because in Mason Rudolph's first start against San Francisco, Samuel's got no touches. So I don't know if this was like a reaction, basically, with the Steelers saying that we need to involve more running backs, create more safe throws for Mason Rudolph. So yes, Jalen Samuels is worth a pickup. Am I going to break the bank to get him? No.
Yep, I would agree with that. I think I've got him number 4 right now behind, I would put it Golden Tate, Ronald Jones, Geronimo Allison, and then Jalen Samuels. I'd spend probably 4 or 5 on Samuels, just in case Connor does miss some time, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's not a very good waiver wire week, guys. Tags, let's finish it off with Corey Davis, who you're a little bit excited about still.
I mean, it's more like he should be owned. It's not like he's a guy that we thought he was going to be, that he's going to be a wide receiver 3 every week, that he's going to see tons of targets. But I mean, it is promising to see Marcus Mariota actually take advantage of a good matchup. And that's what he did last week against Atlanta. AJ Brown, some people are going to be like, why aren't we grabbing AJ Brown? Little fun fact, AJ Brown is number 4 on that team in snaps played at wide receiver. He only saw 3 targets last week. That is hardly sustainable production for a wide receiver, especially one tied to Marcus Mariota. Just talk to anybody that's been to a Corey Davis support group like I have, and you'll understand what it's like to own a wide receiver that's not getting targeted as much as he should. And knowing that Corey Davis, according to Mike Vrabel, that's the head coach of this team, Corey Davis is by far and away the number 1 wide receiver on this team, the guy that's playing the most snaps. I'm going to play Corey Davis. He's had some brutal matchups with cornerbacks. There's going to be better days ahead. Grab him for your bench, and I'll tell you guys when to play him.
Yeah, I would say there's 4 or 5 games this season, the rest of the season, where you'll be able to play Corey Davis.
Yep.
Besides that, he belongs on your bench, but he's your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, so it doesn't really hurt that much. I do think he needs to be owned. I'd rather own Geronimo Allison, especially with Devontae Adams out, but
Yeah,
there's a
for
couple
sure.
wide receivers here worth picking up. Donte Pettis, I think, has a little bit more upside than Corey Davis just because of the offense he's tied to and the offense Corey Davis is tied to. Now, Tags, I'm seeing a lot of questions about Austin Ekeler. Like, every other question is about Austin Ekeler. So let's just talk about him right now. What's he going to be when Melvin Gordon comes back this week?
He's going to go back to his old role. That's what's going to happen. I mean, it does help
Exactly the same.
I won't say exactly the same. It's going to be a slightly increased role because Hunter Henry he's not playing. Hunter Henry is probably out the rest of the year. I know that they're holding out hope that he's going to play again, but he's not. And the correlation between those running back and tight end targets, it's not like Lance Kendricks is a guy that you're going to be worried about stealing targets from Ekeler or Melvin Gordon. Those guys are going to be targeted in the run game. Mike Williams hasn't turned out to be what everybody had hoped he would be. He's a guy that's now outside my top 40 wide receivers the rest of the season. So like you have Keenan Allen, sure, but Keenan Allen's going to be the focus of a lot of teams. And it's like, it's difficult to assign a defender to a running back who might stay in and block. And then you're essentially removing a defender from your defense. So Austin Ekeler is going to be an RB3 play for me most weeks. It's kind of like, think of him like a James White. Okay. He's playing for a high scoring offense. He's going to get 8 to 12 touches per game. A lot of those touches are going to be in the passing game. So he does have value. There's going to be weeks where I say he's a low end RB2 and that Melvin Gordon's a high end RB1. That's going to happen. But most of the time, I'll say that he's a high-end RB3.
You know what I'm really excited about this week, Tags, is Austin Ekeler is going to lead this team in snaps this week because they're going to ease Melvin Gordon back into things. And all the Melvin Gordon owners are going to panic, and they're going to trade him to me.
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to ease Gordon back in at all. I think that this was
really
a week.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a week where it's like he was not involved in the game plan. You just show up to the team on Thursday, and we need you to be an emergency play. This isn't coming back from an injury. This is Melvin Gordon like legitimately coming back and being ready to go. It's kind of like Ezekiel Elliott, but Elliott, was he in game shape, hanging out in Cabo? I don't know. We saw them ease him back into the action, but the Chargers, I mean, I think it's better for them to give Austin Ekeler a break. I mean, this guy is not built to handle 20 plus touches per game that he's been getting.
Right.
So, I mean, knowing that Justin Jackson is probably going to miss more time, I think Melvin Gordon is like a lock for 15 plus touches in his first week back. And again, it's not to say that Austin Ekeler does not have value in this offense. He still does. But as we talked about in the podcast, if you can get someone like David Montgomery for Austin Ekeler, I would do that.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I agree with you, Tags. I'm glad you brought that scenario up. I've actually had a couple people tweet me on Twitter today and let us know, Tags, that they made that exact trade after we talked about it on the podcast yesterday.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to get to the questions. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of start-sit questions. We're not doing that on this show, just the Waiver Wire show. If you want start-sit questions answered, I'm doing the live stream on Thursday, same exact time as this one. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that show. We're going to give you guys notifications to let you know when the show's about to start and everything like that. And again, Tags does his live stream on Sunday mornings. All right, Tags, some Q&A for about 10 minutes. Let's do this, man.
Let's do it.
A lot of people are asking about Juju Smith-Schuster. Where do you have him rested this season?
Oh man, it's frustrating. Now, obviously, in that game like last night, they didn't need him a whole lot, and I'm not expecting Deontay Johnson to suddenly become a guy that's a thorn in his side and stealing his production. It's going to be Juju, but we're at the point now where it is concerning in the fact that Mason Rudolph doesn't look like he's very competent. Like Gardner Minshew looks competent when he's back there. Like Rudolph's jumping around, he's doing these weird dances. Like he could throw a deep ball, that's fine. But Juju, that's not really the area that he's expected to do a whole lot of damage in. But again, some of those targets that are going to James Conner, that are going to, Jalen Samuels, those are going to go to Juju Smith-Schuster. So if you want to tell me that you would trade, I would trade Juju for Tyreek Hill right now if I could. If you're in a league where it's like you started out pretty well that you could afford to trade away and be without Tyreek Hill for 2 weeks, I would do that. But if you're offered Juju Smith-Schuster for someone like maybe like a Sammy Watkins, I might do that.
I would not trade Juju quite yet for Tyreek Hill. Mason Rudolph does not look bad. They're just not using him. Like, they're so nervous about, putting this basically rookie quarterback out there. If they let him loose, man, it's going to happen eventually. If they let him loose, we saw what he did when they let him loose in week 2 when Big Ben got hurt. He was great.
Yeah, I mean, he was, but I don't know. I don't think he felt the pressure that he does when he's a starter now. And I know he did look better against the Bengals, but again, it was the Bengals. So I'm not totally like 100% like out on Juju, but I have him in the wide receiver 2 territory.
Are you wearing a necklace right now?
I have beads, man.
I
I
didn't
went all
notice
out.
that, man.
I went all out. Yeah. So these were, yeah. I found
Some
those.
people were saying that your facial hair game was weak. What do you
Well,
have to say
so
about that?
here's the deal. So basically, I can't make the wife too mad, and so she likes me having scruff on the face. I like having scruff on the face. I don't like shaving completely, and that's why it kind of blends in. But this mustache, it's more of a mustache than I should have. Like I don't do mustaches. I've always been like a beard guy, so yeah, I'm not gonna.
If Tags wanted to, he could have a superior mustache to me without question.
I mean, I like buzzing down my face. I don't like having bushy facial hair.
All right, man. I've got a couple of Saquon Barkley trade offers here. This one's from Nick. He says, "Would you trade Saquon for Joe Mixon and Sanu?" I would trade Saquon for Joe Mixon straight up.
Oh man, this is getting tougher and tougher because Saquon Barkley already shed his walking boot, and this dude is like superhuman. So I probably would take Mixon for like in the grand scheme of things, but
Yeah,
it does depend
Yeah,
on
you
where your
wouldn't.
team's at. Yeah, I guess I would take Mixon for Saquon just because it's like Saquon could be out another 6 weeks. That's possible. We've heard that.
Yeah.
I'll take Mixon.
All right, next one. Should I trade Devontae Adams and James White for Saquon and Adam Thielen?
No, I wouldn't do
I
that.
don't know, man. I think Devontae Adams might miss 2 or 3 weeks. I'd rather have Saquon and Thielen.
No, Thielen's there's a real problem with Thielen. Like I think he could have a couple of big weeks because of the matchups that they have on the docket, and Thielen will be a candidate to sell high for sure. If you want to buy him now at his like absolute low, you can do that, and then you could sell him high after a couple of weeks. But I'm worried, man. They're not playing him in the slot. They're not throwing the ball a whole lot. Their defense does play elite. It's just a matter of like him playing on the perimeter is worrisome. Like last year, he played in the slot. He ran, I think it was like 60% of his routes out of the slot. This year, it's down to 28%. They're using him in a completely different role, and it's screwing everything up between him and Kirk Cousins. I know he scored a few touchdowns, but Diggs actually has more yardage than him. So
Yes, he does.
I'm worried about Adam Thielen. So I'm not buying him right now, unfortunately.
He was really bad at the end of last season as well. Second half, he wasn't a top 30.
That's when they got rid of
fantasy wide
Stefanski
receiver.
too. So it did change.
You're right. Yep. Hey, I've been having a lot of questions about Terry McLaurin now that, the quarterback situation in Washington is just abysmal. Not now that it's always been abysmal, but a lot of people are worried about McLaurin. Can you talk him off the edge?
I don't want to talk you off the edge because obviously, like they said, it was a mild hamstring tweak, and I don't believe in mild hamstring injuries. Like I think it's a hamstring injury, and I'm happy that they sat him last week. There's no reason to put out that guy on the field when you guys are not a playoff team. It's basically Jay Gruden just coaching for his job, which is going to be gone at some point. That's happening. So I want to see him practice in full. But when McLaurin's healthy, like I have him as a top 36 wide receiver the rest of the season. I'm not really worried about him. And knowing that he looked good with Case Keenum, he obviously has chemistry with Dwayne Haskins. I know Haskins didn't look great last week, but having that chemistry, that go-to wide receiver, McLaurin's going to get targeted. And anytime you have a wide receiver who's going to get targeted 8+ times per game, he's a wide receiver 3.
And Keenum's more of a game manager. Haskins is going to take some shots. Think Ryan Fitzpatrick. But it's, Dwayne Haskins, he's a rookie. There's going to be a lot of mistakes there. And there's no doubt about it. Terry McLaurin is the number 1 wide receiver in Washington. He's going to get the snaps, targets, air yards, and with that's going to come fantasy points. All right. Tim is asking, he says Sony Michel was dropped in his league. Would you rather pick up Sony Michel or Geronimo Allison? For me, it's Sony and not even close.
Yeah, it's Sony for sure. They've struggled to run the ball, but it's a Patriots team. They're going to get that run game on track eventually. The passing game is going to open that stuff up. I mean, it is worrisome to see what's happened, but when Bill Belichick backs up Sony Michel in a news conference, like Bill Belichick doesn't blow smoke. Like he doesn't just tell you things just to tell you. If he doesn't want to tell you something, he'll tell you that. But knowing that he went to a podium and said, Sony Michel has done everything we've asked. He's done a phenomenal job. Like there's nothing to worry about with him. That is reassurance enough for me to know that he's going to get back on track. Is he a touchdown reliant option? Yes. But is this a team that's going to score a lot of touchdowns? Yes. So yeah, Sony Michel for sure. He would be my number 1 pickup.
Tags, if you're 0-4 right now, what do you do? Do you just stick with what you have and hope your players bounce back? Because the thing is, you can't sell anybody high. The reason your team's 0-4 is because everyone's playing below expectations. Or do you go out and try to buy guys low and hope that you can sneak in?
No, I mean, you kind of have to, as long as you have players that maybe got off to a slow start, like a Stephon Diggs, those are guys that I'd
Yeah,
be saying hold on to and just you're in it for the ride. And if you get it wrong, it's wrong. But you can't trade away assets that are worth something that are buy lows because some people are going to try and grab them off your team because it's like, hey, I'm 4-0. You need Diggs and he hasn't been playing, so I'll
right.
trade you this guy. And people are upset about doing that after last week. So it's like you have to kind of stick with it. If anything, what it changes for me, it changes how you have to approach the waiver wire. You can no longer sit around and wait for a guy,
Mhm.
like Bobby, his strategy on the waiver wire has always been wait until there's that big injury and grab that guy, have all your
Not
fab
if you're
bucks
0
available.
4.
If you're 0-4, if you're 1-3, you have to start spending some of that money on these players because you need performances like right now.
Yep. All right, let's see here. Who's the better guy to grab? Debo Samuel or Marquise Goodwin?
Could I say neither?
Agree. Leave them
I,
both
I
out
I
there.
guess I'd say Samuel if I had to pick one, but I'm not excited about it.
I would rather pick up a strong backup running back like Tony Pollard or Alexander Madison than either of these guys who have the upside of like a wide receiver 4.
Yeah, it's not a great situation to tie yourself to for sure.
All right. Who would you rather pick up? Devin Singletary is available or Ronald Jones? It's really close. They're both basically the same for me.
Yeah, they're very close in my rest season rankings. I would say that I probably have Singletary slightly higher. I do. So I would go with Devin Singletary just because it's like he's looked fantastic in that offense. It's like when you
Yeah.
have Josh Allen, a mobile quarterback, it's going to help you run the ball a little bit more. And if Jameis Winston starts to suck again, because that just always happens, you're going to start seeing them crowded boxes again. So I will say Devin Singletary, even though I do like Ronald Jones.
And I think that Frank Gore is producing because the offensive line in Buffalo is very good this year. I vastly underestimated their offensive line, and Singletary is going to run wild. They're going to give him the ball a lot. I like Singletary a lot the rest of the season. I just like Ronald Jones upside a little bit more, so it's really close. I'd prefer Singletary. Pick one to add in PPR. So Golden Tate's out there,
Mm-hmm.
Geronimo Allison's out there, and the two guys were dropped that you'd be surprised by tags: Deshaun Jackson and Robbie Anderson. Which of these four would you rather add?
Oh, this is tough. I'd probably say Deshaun Jackson would be the guy that I would grab. I don't know if he's going to play this week, which is it really sucks. But again, this is where it comes down to you can't sit on players like AJ Green, like Deshaun Jackson, guys that aren't on the field if you've started off slow. But if you're 4-0, 3-1, grab Deshaun Jackson because when he's back in the lineup,
Yep.
he's going to be a wide receiver 3 practically every week with like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 upside. He's played one game essentially with Carson Wentz, and in that game, like he he kind of tore the top off the defense. Again, it was Washington, but at the same time, Deshaun Jackson has done that throughout the course of his career. He would be the one I would grab. But if you need someone now and you can't wait on an injury, I think Robbie Anderson would be the one I would grab.
I was going to say Robbie Anderson. He's my number one here, and I don't like Robbie Anderson, but you're right, Tegs. His schedule gets a lot easier coming up. Deshaun Jackson, I don't think he has a floor of a wide receiver 3. I think he has a floor of a wide receiver 6, and that's going to happen 50% of the time, just who he's been.
It's not necessarily the floor. Like a lot of wide receivers that you get into that, wide receiver 3 territory, guys like Will Fuller, even someone like Calvin Ridley right now, we've seen the floor of those players. There's a reason they're considered wide receiver 3s because there's nothing guaranteed with them. So why not get a guy that offers wide receiver 1 upside rather than playing someone like maybe like a Cole Beasley or someone like that. So I do view someone like Deshaun Jackson valuable as a wide receiver 3 because a lot of those guys, you're just not guaranteed much with them anyway.
All right, Tags, let's take 3 or 4 more. Here's the first one. Is there any point in stashing James Washington anymore?
No, let him go.
I agree. Let him go. What about Mike Williams? Drop him or keep him?
I mean, I'd probably keep him for now. It's not looking great. I have him, like I said, he's just outside my top 40 wide receivers rest of the season. So he's obviously not going to be what we thought he was going to be, but I'd still hold on to him and see when he comes back from that injury.
I would definitely hang on to Mike Williams. Daniel wants to know, can I drop DJ Moore? What about Royce Freeman?
Don't drop DJ Moore. He'll be fine. Royce Freeman, no, I wouldn't drop him either. He's a guy that he's involved in basically a 52-48 timeshare. Philip Lindsay is the guy right now, but he's getting plenty of work. And if there were ever an injury to Philip Lindsay or Lindsay were to struggle, you're going to see Royce Freeman get a much bigger role, and it's going to be a startable role in fantasy. So he's one of the better handcuffs to have.
All right.
He has startability outside of that.
Yeah. Who would you prefer, Hardman or Robbie Anderson?
I'm going to go with Robbie Anderson just because it's like, I think you might have 1-2 more weeks of Mecole Hardman. It's not even guaranteed production as we saw this past week. So I'm going to take Robbie Anderson.
All right. He's got an offer. I'm sorry. I just lost this one. Somebody has an offer to get either Kerryon Johnson or Chris Carson. Who do you prefer rest of the season?
Carry on, 100%.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm
What?
concerned about I'm concerned about Carson's workload in terms of like what
Carson
happens.
looked unbelievable last week. He was
He
the
looks
best running back
unbelievable.
in football last week.
That's fine. He does look great. And if I knew that he didn't have a fumbling issue, I'd continue trotting him out there as an RB1. But he has a fumbling issue, and Rashad Penny has been out the last 2 weeks, enabling him to hang on to that starting job. If he does that again, like legitimately, you have yourself an RB5, a guy that's not going to see many touches, that they're going to move to Penny.
Yikes.
So knowing that there's that risk is there, knowing that Kerryon Johnson is a guy that's locked into 20 touches a game now, give me Kerryon.
I'll take the 20% chance that Chris Carson's an RB5 and the 80% chance that Chris Carson is a surefire RB1. I'd rather have that than Kerryon Johnson being a,
but he's not though.
RB2.
He's not a surefire RB1 though, because even if he doesn't lose the job, like we saw CJ Prosise get a goal line carry from him this week, and it might be because he has a fumbling issue. We don't want him fumbling on the goal line. So I'm not convinced that he's like a guy that you. I mean, I have him as the RB15 in my rest season rankings. I still like Chris Carson. He's fine, but Kerryon Johnson is like one of the workhorses that you can find.
You got Kerryon Johnson in your top 15?
I do. I have my RB13.
It's like splitting the workload with Ty Johnson, man. They take him out on third downs a lot.
Bobby, you need to go back and watch the last 2 weeks, or look at the last 2 weeks, because
they're using
Johnson,
him more, but like he's not a workhorse.
No, Ty Johnson was not even involved this week. They actually had who the heck was it? It's their other running back. But either way, Kerryon Johnson, like legitimately over the last, he had like, it was 90, I think it was close to 90% of the touches against the Eagles. And then last week against the Chiefs, they continually put him in. Even when he fumbled on the goal line, which he was reaching back to try and score a touchdown, they put him back in after that, showing the confidence in him. He looks fantastic. He's a 3-down back. A guy, again, locked into 20 touches. There's nobody on that roster that can compete with him. Meanwhile, Chris Carson is competing. He is competing with Rashad Penny.
All right. Agree to disagree. I like Carson's upside a lot more. Tags, this was a lot of fun, dude. You look good. You got to wear that for the rest of your life now.
No, I don't. I'm gonna go actually shave after this.
I'm not gonna shave. I'm just gonna wear this out to Walmart, I think.
Oh man, good luck with that.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed the show, please give us a like, hit the subscribe button. We've got more shows coming out later this week. I've got my Start Sit show on Thursday at the same time. Tags does his on Sunday mornings, where he's going to be breaking down the injuries of the week and answering your questions right before kickoff. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button. Let us know what you think in the comments section as well. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.